Oke, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. We're from the third group with three members. There is Fatina Iftah, Taskia, and Hani Amalia, and Koreatul Wisman. The topic we will presenting to you is our presentation will take around 15 or until 20 minutes. And each of us will focus on one main aspect of this topic. The first material will be explained by me. The second one is by Fatina Miftah. And the last one is by Hani Amalia. So let's move to the first material. The first material is key concept of multilingualism, bilingualism, and diglossia. When we think about language, we often just think about speaking one or two. But today, we're all but today we're going to dive deeper. We'll explore some key concepts that explain how we, as individuals and as societies, use multiple language in our daily lives. We'll start by understanding what is multilingualism. First, multilingualism. Multilingualism is the ability of an individual or community to communicate effectively in three or more languages. It involves the use of multiple language across different contexts or settings. Multilingualism can refer either to the linguistic competence of individuals who have proficiency in multiple language or to the language situation in a society where several language coexist. Multilingualism is common in many parts of the world where multiple languages are needed for different social, ethnic, and or functional purposes. Then, multilingualism is the ability to switch between languages depending on the context. It's important for social identity and communication in multilingual settings. The example for individual multilingualism. An Indian citizen who grew up speaking Hindi and regional language, then learned English at school. He used all three language in various contexts. First is Indian, the second is Hindi, and the third is English. So, societal example. The country of Singapore, where English, Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil there uh, official language. Singaporeans use this language uh, in various contexts. So the second one is bilingualism. Bilingualism refers to the use of two language or language codes by an individual or community. Bilingual speakers usually master both their native language and a second language, switching between them as needed. Balanced bilinguals have nearly equal command of both language, but this is relatively rare. Rare. Bilingualism can be individual or societal. Functional bilingualism refers to having different language proficiencies used in specific domains or activities. Bilingualism is often motivated by cultural identity, education, economy, or migration. It can also have cognitive benefits such as improved problem solving, flexibility thinking, and delayed dementia onset. Bilingual speakers may not always view their language as distinct. Sometimes there are dialect or closely related varieties which adds complexity to the defining bilingual. For the example of individual uh, bilingualism is an immigrant from Mexico who was born and raised speaking Spanish, but later moved to United States, become fluent in English. He can communicate fluently in Spanish and English. For societal example, the profession, the province of Quebec in Canada, uh, where French and English are widely used in government, education, and daily life. And the last one is diglossia. Diglossia describes a socio-linguistic situation where two distinct varieties of a language or closely related language coexist in the same community but serve different social functions. One variety, called the high variety, is used in formal, official, or prestigious settings such as education, religion, media, or literature. The other, called a low variety, is used in informal, everyday conversation, such as at home or with friends. These varieties uh, are functionally complementary and not changeable in their usual context. Classic example for diglossia is the Arab world. Classic Arabic is high variety used in formal contexts such as religion in the Holy Quran, news media, literature, and the low variety is dialects used in informal conversation at home or on the street. So the second material is realities of multilingualism in Indonesia will be explained by Fatina Hifta. The time is
Okay, thank you, Corey, for the for I will deliver about realities of multilingualism and in Indonesia. Okay, I will deliver this material. So, Indonesia's linguistic landscape is a rich diversity of multilingualism, where the national language, Bahasa Indonesia, consists with over uh, 70,000 700 local or regional language. That this unique situation is the result of deliberate language policies and a complex socio-cultural dynamic. Um, Please next slide. Okay, so the next one is the role of Bahasa Indonesia. I give three the role of Bahasa Indonesia. The first one is unifying force. It means that it serves as a vital tool for national unity, bridging communication gaps and across the vast archipelago with its diverse ethnic groups. And the second one is official use. That means Bahasa Indonesia is the exclusive language of government, education, and media, and formal communication. It is the primary medium of instruction in schools and im, im, and is compulsory subject and at all level of education. And the last one is widespread fluency. It means that nearly Indonesian are fluent in Bahasa Indonesia, even if they speak different language at home. And as we know that Indonesia is the mother language, uh, it not depends on the person where he or she come from, and the citizen from Indonesia, they speak fluently to Bahasa Indonesia. Okay, please next slide. Okay, the next one is the reality of regional language. Also, I add 3 points of the reality of regional language. The first one is cultural identity. It means that these language are crucial for preserving cultural heritage, traditions, and local identity. They often use family conversation, community gathering, and traditional ceremonies. And the second one is diglossia. It means a common linguistic phenomenon in Indonesia. Is diglossia. It means bahasa Indonesia is used for high prestige and also informal functions in a regional language, or a variety of Malay is used for low prestige informal ones. So it means that diglossia is a language that Indonesian is really have high position in Indonesia in a lot of subject, in education, in government and media and formal communication. And the last one is threat of decline. It means that they are concerned about the decline of regional language, especially among younger generation in urban areas. This part language policy aims to balance national unity with the preservation of this linguistic. And this is the focus on Bahasa Indonesia can sometimes overshadow the support for local language. Next slide. Okay, the next one is about sociolinguistic dynamic. The first one is about code switching and code mixing. That means Indonesia's command of between or something like mixing words from different language in a single conversation, like Indo-English. I think we can find it in the Jakarta, Bekasi, something like speaking communicative daily, but they use Indo-English, and also it particularly among the youth in media, which a sign of modernity of a prestige. And the second one is educational policy. It means that the language policy in education reflects the dynamics, while Indonesia is um, the primary medium of instruction. The government also allows for regional language to be taught in the first few years of primary school. And also, English was the international language. That means uh, English is foreign language in Indonesia, and it also important for citizens in Indonesia know about this language. Yeah. Okay, the next one is a subtractive model. It means that the dominance of both Indonesia and English in formal settings can sometimes create a subtractive from multilingualism, where the use of one language, for example, like in English country, and come at the expense of others like a regional language, especially in education. So that's all for me about the material about realities of multilingualism in Indonesia. I give it back to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Fatina Ita, for the explanation of the second material. And the last material will be explained Bye. Hani Amalia. The time is yours.
Okay, thank you for the opportunities, Corey. So, today now I will continue with the third part of our presentation, which is about the implication for English learning in multilingual settings. According to Brad Chipper in 20 and 70, English is no longer taught solely as a foreign language, but increasingly function as an English medium of instruction or EMI. And there are several points regarding the implication for English learning in multilingual settings. First is English as a medium of instruction or EMI. English is not now English is not only a subject but also serves as the language of instruction in various university and school around the world. And this change in function requires students to have advanced academic literacy in English, not just everyday conversation skill. And this can also have a direct impact on teacher training needs and curriculum design that can support the achievement of this academic competition. And the next point is English in the construction and dissemination of knowledge. Most international scientific publications today use English as their primary medium, and this make academic English proficiency an important requirement for anyone who wants to access, understand, and contribute to knowledge at a global level. And this can open up wider opportunities to cross-border scientific collaboration. However, it also poses various challenges, especially for non-native speakers. The use of English in an academic achievement often becomes an additional burden, and both in terms of limited vocabulary, language structure, and academic writing style. And next is the concept of multilingual proficiency. Uh, Brad Chipper puts forward a new concept, namely multilingual proficiency, and this concept emphasizes that language learning shouldn't only focus on mastery of English, but also on mastery of the linguistic knowledge that students already possess that from the various languages they have mastered. Experience in mastering one language can provide a strong foundation for learning other languages. So, student multilingual competence should be viewed as an asset that uh, enriches the learning process, not just as an obstacle. With this perspective, the diversity of languages that student process can actually be an important research that support their academic and communicative development. And the next point is student-centered approach. In many educational contexts, multilingualism is still often viewed as a challenge or even considered a problem that needs to be overcome. And this view tends to place student linguistic diversity as an obstacle in the learning process. However, there is a student-centered approach, which is a perspective that view the first language as a valuable asset in learning English. And by utilizing these linguistic competencies that student already possess, the learning process can become more inclusive and effective. And this approach not only reduces barriers to understanding the material, but also recognize student linguistic identities and thereby encouraging their motivation and engagement in learning. And the next point is a new role for English teachers. The role of English teachers in a multilingual context requires greater pedagogical flexibility. The English only place that has often been implemented has proven to be ineffective. as it can limit student understanding and reduce their participation in the learning process. Conversely, the strategic use of student first language as a tool uh, can serve as a guide to improve their understanding and a concept while strengthening their engagement in the classroom. Therefore, teachers ideally also need to develop their multilingual skills in order to be able to establish closer relationship with students from diverse linguistic background. By having this concept or these competencies, teachers can optimize student linguistic potential, create an inclusive learning environment, and support the formation of their identities as multilingual speakers. And the last point is developing a new research and policy agenda. Evidence-based decision regarding language place, teachers' development and curriculum design must be grounded in uh, rigorous research and centered on the needs of learners. This means moving away from deficit models that view multilingualism as a challenge and instead leveraging it as a source of knowledge to enhance language learning. And research should focus on teaching practice that use more than one language to range for learning, such as content and language integrated learning. Okay, maybe that's all I can explain about implication for English learning in multilingual settings. I will give it back to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Hani Amalia. And we will move to the conclusion. That will be presented by Fatina Ita. The time is
Okay, thank you, Kori, for the for the yeah, thank you. Okay, I will explain about the conclusion. So the conclusion, multilingualism, bilingualism, and diglossia concepts are complex and multifaceted phenomena that shape the way individuals and communities communicate, interact, and understand each other. Multilingualism fosters cultural understanding, cognitive and also flexibility and adaptability, while bilingualism offers cognitive benefits, improved problem-solving skills, and also the deeper connection to multiple culture. Diglossia, on the other hand, highlighting the functional distribution of languages in society, reflecting social hierarchies, power dynamics, and contextual appropriateness. Understanding this concept is crucial for promoting effective communication in inclusive education and social integration in diverse communities, and ultimately enriching our global society. And also based on analysis of the concept multilingualism, bilingualism and diglossia, along with Indonesian linguistic reality, is clear that the country's linguistic dynamics are complex and mirror a global trend. Multilingualism in Indonesia is not just a social phenomenon, but valuable asset with Bahasa Indonesia serving as the unifying force across diverse ethnic groups. And however, while Bahasa Indonesia dominates formal settings in education, in media, and government, but this language remains vital for preserving cultural identity in informal context, also in creating functional diglossia. That's all for the conclusion. I give it back to moderator.
okay. Thank you, Fatina Ita. So right now we will move to the Q&A section. The first question will There are three questions and will be answered by us one by one. The first question is, what do Mayor Hope or Holmes mean by bilingualism, multilingualism, and diglossia? Uh, First, bilingualism refers to the ability or practice of using two language or dialect in everyday life. And second one is multilingualism extend this concept of the use of three language or more language by an individual or community. And uh, and the last one is diglossia, meaning by Mayhoff and Holmes is distinct from bilingualism and multilingualism. It describes a social linguistic situation where two dialects or languages coexist within the same community but are used in the different domains. Okay, the second question will be answered by Fatina.
Okay, thank you, Cory. I will answer the second question. It's about how Indonesia, a multilingual nation. It means that Bahasa have a 70, 100 local language. So I will answer this question. So as we know that Indonesia had a lot of languages and a lot of diverse. Indonesia represents one of the world's more remarkable linguistic ecosystem with a lot of language, with a single nation. That means Indonesia had a lot of unique graphical configuration. But unlike many nations that emphasize linguistic assimilation, Indonesia has maintained a complex multilingualism equilibrium where the national language or Bahasa Indonesia is also regional language and foreign language. Each serve this distinct yet complementary function in society. And also, this linguistic environment creates unique opportunities and challenges for language education. And in context of the domain of English acquisition, which has become increasingly important for global participation. That's all for me. That's the answer of the second question. I give it back to Cory.
Okay, the last question will be answered by Hani Amalia.
Okay, thank you, Corey, for the opportunities. Now I will answer the third question. With the question is, how can teachers use multilingual researchers as strength? So teachers can use students' multilingual abilities as a strength by allowing them to make connection between English and their home languages. For example, like comparing similar words, using translation activities, and or encouraging encouraging group work where students explain concept in both languages, and this can help students understand better and feel proud of their linguistic background like this.
Okay, we will close this presentation. I hope this discussion have provided you with a deeper appreciation for the unique linguistic landscape of the country. We've seen how Bahasa Indonesia successfully unites a diverse nation while local languages continue to thrive as a bedrock of cultural identity. Thank you again for your time and attention. Now, I will close the presentation by thanking you for the attention and the question. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.